In this video, we'll show you how to install a high-performance Rockford Fosgate audio system on a Harley-Davidson motorcycle. Welcome back. I'm Eric, and today we're going to install an HD9813RGU-STAGE2 on this cool 2011 Road Glide Ultra. We'll get started by removing the seat using a number 2 Phillips and a 10mm socket to disconnect the battery negative. Now on this motorcycle, we're also disconnecting a harness underneath for the heated seat. Now we're ready to remove the fairing. First, we'll install the service cover on the fender. We'll start by using a 1/2" ratchet to remove 4 bolts holding on the marker lights. Then we'll use a number 2 Phillips to remove 5 screws that hold on the visor. We'll switch over to a T20 Torx and remove 6 bolts that hold the fairing on the inside. Now, it's best to have 2 people for this step. One to hold the fairing in position and the other to remove the screws. Once we pull down on the fairing, we'll disconnect the headlight harness and go ahead and remove it. Okay, now we're ready to remove our speakers. We'll start by detaching the speaker wires, noting the one with the red stripe is positive and the other is negative. Now normally we use a T25 Torx to remove 3 screws from each speaker and then remove it. However, this motorcycle already has some aftermarket speakers installed, so our process will be slightly different. We're just going to use a number 2 Phillips to remove the speaker and detach the speaker adapter. Now once you're done on this side, we'll go ahead and repeat the process on the other. Okay, now that that's done, we're ready to remove the factory radio. First, detach any peripherals from the top and disconnect them. Detach the OEM harnesses from the radio by lifting up on the tabs and pulling the plugs out. Then, remove the antenna. Now, using a long reach 3/16 Allen, unscrew 2 of the screws from each side of the radio. Once you're done, carefully remove the radio by sliding it out from the back. Alright, now we're ready to remove our Tour Pak speakers. To get started, we'll use a T10 Torx driver to remove 4 screws holding the grill and speaker in place. Remove the grill and speaker, then detach the speaker wires. Note which wires are positive and negative. Once you're done, repeat the process on the other side. Okay, now we're ready to install our new source unit. To get started, use a clean, slightly damp microfiber cloth to remove any dust around the fairing's opening. Then insert the radio at an angle into the rear bracket housing to prevent the rubber gasket around the front of the radio from binding. Also, be careful with the front radio controls not to hit anything. Slide the radio into the fairing opening, then slide the chassis down into place. Use a 3/16 Allen to secure the radio using the existing 4 bolts. Once we're done, reconnect the OEM harnesses and the antenna. Now take note that we're not using the RCA output supplied with the radio since we're using the high-level speaker outputs. However, on this motorcycle, we are going to connect the harness in case we want to use the AUX input in the future. we're going to use a T10 Torx to open the access door and plug the harness with the catch prong facing up until it clicks into place. Okay, now we want to talk to you about the USB input that allows you to charge your phone, play music, and make software updates on the radio. Now you have a couple options for this cable. You can mount the USB in the left pocket by drilling a hole and using a step-up bit to increase the diameter to 21 millimeters or 7/8 of an inch. Second option is replacing the cigarette lighter with our universal USB and 3.5 millimeter handle mount accessory. Now this optional adapter allows you to do all this, plus allow you to connect your non-Bluetooth audio devices into the radio's aux input. On our bike, we're going to replace the lighter with this PAUX. All right, we're making great progress. Now we're ready to install our new speakers. The TMS5 RG speakers included in your kit contain replacement bezels, grills, and screws. Be sure to use this hardware included in the kit. Position the speakers with the logo facing down and use a number 2 Phillips to secure the 3 screws on each side. Okay, now that we have that done, we're ready to remove the gas tank. We'll start off by disconnecting 2 harnesses and pulling 2 breather lines in the back. Note that they may be zip tied underneath. Next, we'll disconnect the gas line. Push up on the hose, and while sliding the fitting upward, pull down on the gas line. Be sure to have a shop rag handy to catch any excess fuel left in the line. On our motorcycle, there's also some aftermarket LEDs that we'll be disconnecting. Once that's done, we'll use a 1/2 inch socket to remove 2 bolts from the front and the back of the gas tank. Okay, now that we have access to the center channel, we're ready to install our power and Tour Pak harnesses. To get started, first unsnap the center channel cover. Then take the connector side of our power harness and run it up the clutch side to the amplifier location. Then we'll finish routing the power and ground cables down the left side of the channel, making sure that we have enough slack to make our battery connections. Then we'll switch over to our Tour Pak harness and run the connectors labeled rear in and rear out up the brake side to the amplifier location. We'll finish by routing the harnesses on the right side of the channel and resting the remaining slack near the battery. All right, now we're ready to install our speakers in our Tour Pak. To get started, we'll run our Tour Pak harness along the factory harness and route the wires labeled clutch left to the left speaker and brake right to the right speaker. Follow the factory harnesses and insert the wires into the bottom cutout of the Tour Pak. Next, attach the spade terminals to the existing wires, noting the black stripe is negative. But don't worry, they're keyed to fit one way. Now here you may want to use some Tesa tape to prevent the terminals from shorting out. Then we'll attach the speaker wires to the speaker, noting that red is positive and black is negative. Next, place the speaker and grill assembly in the Tour Pak while aligning the logo toward the bottom. Finally, using a 2mm Allen wrench and the 4 supplied screws, secure the speaker in place. Alright, now we're ready to prep our amplifier for installation. To get started, we'll be using the heatsink and these two brackets from our amp mounting kit. First, turn the heatsink over so the fins are facing down and the diamond R is facing you. Then, take the larger bracket with the flap facing outward and secure it to the holes labeled 98-13 Road Glide using a 2mm Allen and 2 flush mount screws. Then take the smaller bracket with the flap facing out and secure it to the 2 holes labeled 98-13 Road Glide. Use the same 2mm Allen and flush mount screws to secure it into place. Before proceeding, be sure to remove the pre-installed power connector from our amp since our harness already has one installed. We'll flip the assembly over and secure our amplifier in place with 4 button head screws using a 2.5mm Allen driver. Okay, now we're ready to tune and install our amplifier. We need to tune the amp first because you'll notice that the amp will be oriented upside down when we install it. Now we offer this free amp tuning guide that's available in the description of this video and through this kit's product details page at rockfordfosgate.com. Once we're done tuning the amp, we'll start with the 1/2" socket and remove 2 nuts on the left side of the fairing. We'll slide the amplifier assembly up and capture our marker light harness in the slot of the small bracket. Then we'll position the larger bracket over the 2 bolts and replace the 1/2" nuts to secure the assembly in place. Be sure to properly position your marker light harness before tightening those 2 bolts. Alright, now we're ready to wire our amplifier. We'll take the input harness from our amp mounting kit and connect the cable labeled left side input to the left OEM terminals, and the harness labeled right side input to the right OEM terminals. Once you're done, connect the Molex into the amplifier's front input. Now we'll switch to the output harness, noting the red is positive and black is negative. Connect this cable labeled left side output to the left speaker, and the right side output to the right speaker. Finally, plug the Molex into the amplifier's front output. Alright, now we're ready to connect our Tour Pak and power harness. First, connect the harness labeled rear input into the amplifier's rear input, and connect the harness labeled rear output to the amplifier's rear output jack. Now we're also going to install this Y adapter because the customer wants to add bag lids at a later time. Once you're done with that, plug the power connector into the amplifier. Keeping in mind that that blue turn-on wire is not used in this configuration since we're using the high-level input signal to turn the amplifier on and off. Alright guys, you're in the final stretch. Now we're ready to reassemble our motorcycle. We'll start in the front and clean up our wiring in preparation for the fairing. Then we'll move to the back and connect the power cable to the positive terminal and reconnect our negative cable to our amp ground. Once that's done, we'll put everything back in place. Now that we have the bike reassembled, we're ready to test and tune the system. Now we offer a free tuning guide that's available in the description of this video and through this kit's product details page at rockfordfosgate.com. The guide illustrates what tuning presets to use based on the speaker configuration of your motorcycle. Now the names of the presets may vary based on the software version of your source unit. but you can always download the latest software at rockfordfosgate.com. Use the guide to select the proper preset. Once selected, the radio will take a few moments to load the desired tuning profile. As you can see, that install was pretty straightforward. Now, if you prefer to have a professional do the install for you, we have a network of authorized Rockford Fosgate dealers that can be found on our website. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to contact our technical support. They can be reached Monday through Friday at 1-800-669-9899 or through live chat at the bottom of our website at rockfordfosgate.com. Until next time, I'm Eric. We'll see you again soon.